Good morning, everyone. I am Felicia Malelli, and I'm the board chair for New Jersey Public Health Innovation Political Action Committee. Today, I'm joined by board treasurer and co-founder, Lori Don Diego. Hello, Lori.
Hi. Pleasure to be here.
Just a quick mention to our Jewish followers observing Yom Kippur. Greetings. We wish you an easy feast and Goma Hatuma Toma. Okay, so let's get started. We are here today. It's October 5th, 2022. We are quickly approaching the 2022 midterm elections, and it is truly great to come on live once again to all of you from our PAC Chat studio and to bring you this morning not one, but two 2022 congressional endorsements. First up this morning, we will bring on shortly Sue Kiley from Congressional District 6. And then last but not least, we will have an interview with Bob Healey, who is of Congressional District 3. So please plan to stick around. There's also some special announcements that we want to share and some breaking news. So if this is your first time tuning in with us, welcome. And if you are joining again, welcome back. Myself and the entire board of NJPHIPAC are deeply committed to protecting and advancing health freedom here in New Jersey and beyond. Our endorsement process was developed with a set of standards and integrity. Every endorsement we make requires a minimum that the candidate complete and submit the NJ.GOV survey and participate in an in-depth interview with the board of directors. Other factors and considerations are prior voting records of the candidate, if any, their political positions, or statements on matters that affect our mission and more. Ultimately, the NJ.PHIPAC standards are to endorse candidates with transparency, integrity, and measurement without bias, so that when you see the NJ.PHIPAC Gold Seal endorsement, the New Jersey voter can be confident that this is the best candidate for our collective mission. To learn more about who we are and what we do, please visit NJPHIPAC.org and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube to stay abreast to current events in New Jersey, state politics, and federal politics as well, as it pertains to health freedom and parental rights. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to welcome Sue Kiley. Hello, Sue. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Good. For those of you who are unfamiliar to the parameters of Congressional District 6, there was redistricting, and it does include parts of Monmouth and Middlesex counties. I'm sure, Sue, you can elaborate on that.
Sure.
So first, before we get started with your questions, on behalf of the board of NJ.PHIPAC, I wanted to extend your congratulations on this endorsement.
Thank you. This is absolutely wonderful because I believe in everything you stand for. And so it's quite a privilege to get your endorsement. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. So we're going to get started with some warm-up questions. We've had some great conversations with you, lengthy. We've gotten to know you and understand your values and principles, and we want our community to have that same trust that we do in you. So can you give us a look inside of who Sue Kiley is personally, professionally, outside of politics, and what was the turning point in your life that you can attribute to this run for Congress?
Sure. First of all, I started my career as a registered nurse. And I was in nursing for a period of time, not long, actually, maybe 8 years. And then from there, I went into the corporate world, always in healthcare and, always involved in hospitals, et cetera. And I loved it. And I was when I was getting ready to leave, when I was thinking about retirement, let me put it that way, I was a senior vice president at a $22 billion company and had some great success. There was a pivot point, and I'll never forget it. It was when Superstorm Sandy hit our area. Superstorm Sandy devastated people around me. I was looking at the Florida catastrophe, and it reminded me so much of what we went through in places like Union Beach, where they absolutely, completely had their houses float away. They were just gone. I just, I stopped working for a while with the company's blessing and worked in the streets of Union Beach, Keyport, Airport, all the areas that were most badly hit, and just helping people. We had no electricity. We couldn't go to the gas stations because they were out of gas. We finally got special permission for a charity I worked for, the Rain Foundation, and they let us get gas because we were driving food into those areas where people just couldn't get out and they couldn't get food. And we commandeered about 500 volunteers. Well, after that, when you actually go back to work, the work has just lost its sizzle. You feel so passionate about what you're doing when you're out helping real people. What the company was doing was great, but I wasn't touching people. So I decided I was going to look for something else to do. My husband had just retired and went back to work, and I went into public service. So I ran in my own town, Hazlitt, and I won. And I served as the deputy mayor and the mayor in my town. Then I moved to Freeholder, which now is commissioner of all of the county, 53 towns in Monmouth County. And then from there, I am here in front of you. I just started my second term as a commissioner. Personally, I am a mother. I am a grandmother. I should tell you, I'm a mother of 5, and I'm a grandmother of 13. And believe it or not, when I say that live, people clap for it. I really didn't have anything to do with the grandchildren, but they are so wonderful. So that's a big, big part of my life. And I'm very involved in their lives. I'm very involved in what they're learning in the schools, how they're being treated. That's a big passion of mine. So on the personal side, my husband and I both we thoroughly enjoy being with the grandkids.
Excellent. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And, it's, it gives you a range of life experiences. You're professional, being a mother, 5 kids. It's like having a team.
Yes, it is.
I'm one shy of you, so I have 4. And that's why I'm here as well. And it's what we live for, right? And then the grandchildren just makes it even better. So as a mother, or you had a previous career in nursing as well, right?
Yes.
Have you ever had a time where you were challenged or you had to challenge the status quo relative to healthcare to better advocate for for a patient or your children in the system?
Okay. I was thinking really hard about that question. And the first things that came to mind, believe it or not, I used to work in the emergency room, and this was many years ago. And some of the doctors would moonlight in the emergency room, whether they were an emergency room doctor, or if they were a cardiologist, or if they were an EMT. So oftentimes we knew a lot more about what they had to do in the emergency room than they did. And that was a challenge because you really, really had to step up and you really had to convince them that you knew what you were talking about. That's the first thing that came to mind. The other things that come to mind are, how the kids are not always treated the way I would say they should have been treated. Somebody's got a bellyache and they want to come home. Well, they want to come home because they know that they have aunts and uncles that are coming over. Let me at least talk to them on the phone. Nope, she's got to go home. So, I thought some of the rigid rules I objected to in the school. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody needs we rely on our parents and especially as a nurse, those advocacy moments. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
What other attributes do you hold that make you stand out as someone that we can depend on to be a champion in our issues?
Sure. First off, I think one of my best qualities is that I'm very honest. And I've said this many times. If you ask me a question, I'll give you my honest opinion. If you don't want to know what it is, don't ask me the question. Because I do believe you have to be honest and upfront when you get asked anything, whether it's in the political world or whether it's at a kitchen table. But the other thing is that I'm very logical. I have a lot of common sense. And when I was in the business world, I had tremendous amount of training on things like negotiation skills, how to work a financial budget, how to, many different things as it related to business. And that gave me a very well-rounded background to come into politics. I like to be, what's the right word? I like to be approachable. I want to make sure that anybody that wants to talk to me has the opportunity to do that. I care very much about the people that are in my area. And if they come to me with something, I'm going to do everything I can to help them, and that comes from, I guess, from my nursing. You're obligated to do something to make that person's life a little better. And I take that with me into public service. What am I going to do that's going to make this person have a better life?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your transparency and honesty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pass it over to Lori to ask you about some relative current event questions.
Sure.
Sorry, I was muted. First, I want to thank you for your work with Sandy. That's amazing. Every time we meet with you, I learn something new and more incredible about you. So that was great. Also, your medical background, that really is great, because once you get in, and we really think you will, you can end up on the health committee, which would be great for us. Having freedom-minded people that understand the importance of personal choice is really great to have on those, subcommittees in Congress.
Great.
Now for the current event question. While many Americans have began licking their COVID wounds, there are so many who are still suffering from unrest for different reasons: job loss, discharge, expulsion from colleges and universities. Most Americans can kind of forget that COVID happened and what happened during that time, but a lot of them can't, because their lives were really affected. The commonalities among them: the way overdue, the unproven and persistent COVID vaccination mandates. They're still counting that, you get the vaccinations from before, when so much has come out. So specifically in New Jersey, healthcare professionals and correctional officers must still be kept up to date on all COVID vaccinations, or they face unemployment. Even though on September 18th, President Biden himself said the pandemic is over. And then on September 23rd, the CDC infection control guidance changed to say that vaccination status is no longer used to inform source control, screening, testing, or post-exposure recommendations. Then on the 26th, they updated their guidance to say they no longer recommend universal masking in health facilities. So we're still following, science that nobody can show us. And the people they were following have since changed their guidance, but we haven't updated anything on our end, causing people to lose jobs for what we would consider old news.
Mm-hmm.
So what were your thoughts on these mandates in the first place, and since then, the perpetual nature of them?
Thank you for that question, because I'm passionate about it. I was overseeing Health and Human Services throughout the COVID cycle. And I've learned through my nursing, because I've worked in an emergency room, I've worked in an operating room, and masks are not really very effective. So that's number one. Distance, keeping your distance, washing your hands repeatedly, staying home when you're sick. Oh my God, if I said that once, I said it 1,000 times. But when the governor presents a mandate, you have no choice but to follow it. So I had a lot of resistance, a lot of people very angry, and businesses that had to shut down completely and lost so much revenue. Some of them never came back. About a third of them didn't come back. So it made me very angry because all along I didn't believe that this was the crisis people were making it out to be. People, thousands and thousands of people die from the flu every year, but it's never really publicized the way COVID was. COVID was special. I think that you have to trust your own body, you have to trust your own senses. You have to trust your health experience in the past. The vaccines were very new and came out faster than any vaccine has ever come out. So it's not unlikely to think that there might be problems with it, that there might be things we didn't know about. I'll tell you a story about a young woman that I know very well who was going back to Rutgers for her next semester. And she was told she couldn't come back to the school unless she got her vaccine, which she did. The next day, she started with uncontrollable tremors in her arms and her legs. She was confused. She couldn't talk. She went through a horrendous couple of weeks with these kinds of symptoms. And they tested everything imaginable in the hospitals and couldn't figure out anything that might have caused this other than possibly the vaccine. It was never admitted that it was the vaccine, but that was the only thing that was different. And, I know that she has a compromised immune system, and I would never have let her have it. I think it was a terrible decision, but she wanted to go to school so badly that she said, how bad can it be? So, we should have the rights to say things about that. And I'll tell you another one that makes me crazy. The military, if they didn't get their COVID vaccines, they were fired. I got to tell you, if I ever am in Congress, which I believe I will be, I would like to propose that they all get their jobs back, because I thought that was atrocious. People that are saving our lives are saving other lives so that we have freedom, and we're kicking them out because they didn't get a shot.
We also wonder if that's purposeful. Like, well, what would be the reason to do that to military servicemen with something, I know they've been testing all sorts of things on them for years, but knowing what we know now with all the lawsuits that have come out, the Camp Lejeune, the Agent Orange stuff, all these things that have come out, why are we still doing this to them? They're signing up to protect us. And, we collectively, we're not voting for the people that are going to affect change and allow medical freedom to them. And, it's sad. What do you
I agree.
think needs to happen to prevent this type of stronghold from happening again?
Well, hindsight is always 20/20, but I would like to think that we've learned a tremendous amount about how ineffective the methods we tried were, and that we would do better the next time. But I also think we need very conservative, common sense people in those seats that are making those decisions, because there is no logic in my mind to some of the decisions we made. We have states that stayed open the entire time, and the statistics don't show that they did any worse than a state like ours that shut everything down. In fact, they did better. So I think you need the right people in government. I really do. I think you need conservative, common sense people, and you need to do the right thing for the constituents.
Thank you so much. We look forward to you making more decisions on our behalf. So we see health freedom as a basic human right, which we believe should not be defined within any political party lines. What will you do to encourage representatives, regardless of their party affiliation, to reach across the aisle to actually affect change with regard to these issues?
There's a lot of conversation that has to take place, and I'm sure a lot of debate. But you can't tell me that when it comes to children, that their parents can't say what their children's health care is going to entail. We have Scientologists that we've had for years that will not allow blood transfusions on themselves or on their family because they don't believe in it. And that request is honored. So why wouldn't we honor a request to not vaccinate our children, especially if they have an autoimmune disease? This woman, or this young girl that was going back to Rutgers, her mom tried very hard to not get her vaccinated, and it didn't work. I think that there's a lot of talk that has to happen across the aisle. And I think it's going to take some confidence building, some trust building, because, we all have children. we all have experienced, if you have another candidate on here, they'll probably tell you a story of what they experienced with the vaccine. It's a matter of getting the consensus of the Republicans, and hopefully we will have that after the election, and just making common sense, logical decisions. And I don't think you should mandate a vaccine for anyone.
Agreed. Thank you so much for those answers.
Sure.
So next we have, Felicia.
Yep. I just wanted to move into learning a little bit about what's going on in your district.
Okay.
We would love to give our viewers a sense of what you stand for, in addition to advocating for health freedom, and just in general as a representative, in contrast to your opponent.
Sure. What's happening in our district right now are three major things that people are very upset about. And one is safety, and this movement to defund the police has got everybody very worried, because there are not enough officers out there to be able to stop the crime that is happening, and the crime is rising. So we have to address that quickly. The other issue that people are very upset about and talk about is the economy and inflation. Inflation is the highest it's been in 40 years. And the government continues to spend money on things that I don't always agree with. And that's very concerning. And the reason it's upsetting so many people is because now it's hitting their pocketbooks. If you say to a mother or a father that's working hard at his own job and is caring about his family, you say, "Oh, can you believe we spent this much money on X?" Well, he can't drill that down to what that means to him. Most people can't. This, we don't have enough money to buy food. There is not enough food on the shelves because of supply chain problems. Those things, they hit really close to home. And we can't buy milk. My daughter had a baby, and we couldn't get the formula that her baby used. So, when you have issues like that are happening right in your economy, or happening to the people that are in the district, that's top of mind. That's what they want to talk about. That's what they're upset about. There's so many more issues that are big issues, like healthcare, like the border, and stopping the fentanyl from coming in. But most times when you talk to someone in the district, they're going to tell you, how can we get this economy back on track? And I really believe it's because it's hitting their pocketbooks, it's hitting their lives, and it's changing the decisions they make.
Yep, absolutely. I'm just curious, what are you seeing in district? Is there any reluctancy to get out to vote? Or do you have to encourage people? Or are they like, let's go, we're ready?
I'll tell you, everybody tells you they're going to vote. And everybody, like people I see, they like what I have to say. And they say, I'm going to vote for you, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat. A lot of Democrats have said that to me. The question is, will they do it? And, we are encouraging everyone as much as we can. And we're bringing up the issues that are really hurting the American people. And those are the things that we want to see changed. And if they believe us, which many of them seem to, then we'll get them out to vote, because then they will see the future of a change in their own lives that gives them a better quality of life. So the big issue is, you say you're going to vote, but now we got to make sure you get out there, because this is a critical election.
Yeah. Well, I'm certain that your demeanor and your open-mindedness for common sense and ability to be approachable is very relatable to many, and encouraging them to get out to vote. So what does the next 30 days look like for you?
Well, I'd have to look at my calendar to tell you what I'm doing in the next hour. I'm kidding, but it's very, very busy. This is our last chance to hit as many people as we can, to convince them or show them what our current representative is not doing and what we plan to do. The other thing is that I'm currently a Monmouth County Commissioner. I'm the Deputy Director. And I'm very, very active in my county at finding solutions for people. We created an organization called Monmouth Acts, and that's assisting communities through services. And what we do is we bring all of the service providers together in Monmouth County, and we created this Monmouth Acts. So everyone that's in the circle understands what each one of their counterparts provides. So now if you go into, for example, a senior citizen comes in because they want their taxes done, and that's something the county will do for them. But then they start telling you that they're so worried about where they live because they think they're going to get kicked out. She will not say, oh, that's somebody else, you got to call them. She will walk them through the process and connect them with the right person to help them. So it changes dramatically the confidence people have in their community, in their county. And we've been able to save and help a whole lot of people. And I think we should do more of that across the United States.
Yeah, and that's so essential right now. I think for speaking for myself, somebody who was not political by nature as of 4 years ago, that has now had to step into this role to protect our children in New Jersey, I have found more than not that just having those conversations, talking about what we need, bringing this to the forefront, we're being heard. So we are always encouraging our community to just take that step, make the phone call, send the email, whether it's a question or a concern, and that you'd be surprised. You will reach you will reach somebody if you put in that phone number and call, and most times people are pretty responsive and helpful.
The other thing I would like to do is I would like to do more town meetings. My opponent doesn't do them at all. But I've discovered through campaigning that if you're in New Brunswick, your issues are very, very different than if you happen to be in Monmouth County. So unless you're out in front of those people and talking to them about their issues, you're not going to get a handle on what needs to be done. So I plan on doing a lot more of that. He hasn't done any.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now we
Lori?
have some quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
I just want to get to know you a little bit better, more up close and personal. What was your first paid job?
My first paid job was being a waitress in the Hazlitt Swim Club. And I was behind the counter serving everybody their hamburgers and hot dogs.
That's awesome. What is your current favorite restaurant?
Oh boy, I have a couple. I love Ponte Vecchio in it's Mattawan, I think. And I love Neil Michaels, which is on Highway 36, and it's a hidden gem. It's a great steakhouse.
Oh, we'll have to try it.
Oh, it's really good.
Do you have any pets?
I do. And if she wasn't locked in the bedroom, you'd be hearing her. She's a mutt. We rescued her from the SPCA. And she's really cute. She's only about 15 pounds. But, the way she barks, she thinks she's, 100 pounds. she's bold and brazen.
Aw. What's the most interesting destination you visited?
Let me think. I'll be honest. I've been to the islands, that kind of stuff. But I think the best trip I ever took with my husband was when we went to Hawaii, because we had lots of relaxation, but we also got to see where, Pearl Harbor was and learn some of the history about what happened there. It was really an incredible vacation.
Awesome. What was the last TV series you've watched?
Oh, you're going to laugh at me. My background, right? I've been watching Grey's Anatomy.
Same. I can't get away from it.
And I'm always challenging, that's not the large intestine, that's the small intestines. But I enjoy it. I like watching it.
That's awesome. Who is your greatest role model?
The first one that comes to mind, so I should go with it, is my mother. My mother was very bright. She didn't have a college education. She was all about her family. anything and everything was her family. And she would pray every single night to the Blessed Mother because she believed, and she used to pray the Memorare, which is a prayer that basically says, your son will never deny me if you ask him, because sons can never deny their mothers, right? And she would pray it every single night. And, you know, she'd yell at us. She'd say, I can't find my prayer book. Her prayer book was down to like 2 pieces of paper. And we were always looking for it so she could pray. But that was such a stronghold in her life. And I really admired her for it. She was a great mom, and she had been a single one-child family. So she always prayed that she was doing the right thing. And she was a great woman.
That's awesome. It sounds like you are too. 5 kids and running for Congress.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Before we move on, can you please share with us any way our viewers can help support you and any final words you have?
Absolutely. The one thing I will tell you is that my opponent has been in Congress for 34 years. So that's 34 years that he's been raising money to do his campaigns. So needless to say, his war chest is a little bigger than mine. So donations are greatly appreciated, and you can make them at SueKiley.com. That takes you to my website. It gives you an opportunity to see the platform. It gives you an opportunity to read my bio, and hopefully that'll teach you everything you ever needed to know about me. And as I said, I really am working very, very hard. And the 2 things at this point that I need more than anything is contributions and votes.
Great. So we always like to ask the final question of if you could just spend a second explaining to our viewers what medical freedom means to you.
You know, medical freedom means control. It means that I have control over my health care, and that my children who are not, you know, they're still minors, I have control over their health care as well. I mean, that's the bottom line. You have to be able to make decisions based on what you know about your own body. Now, granted, you have trusted advisors in your doctors, you know, in specialists. And I certainly advise that everybody get as up to speed or well-educated on what they might be facing before they make a decision, but it's their decision to make.
Excellent. You said it perfectly. And that's what we like to project as well. It's about choice. It's about bodily autonomy, informed consent. And you said it all right there, being able to make that decision for yourselves and your family. And we've heard you say it multiple times in our conversations. We are grateful that you were able to spend this time with us to express those values that you have with our viewers, and to reach them in that way, to get more personal. I'm sure anybody viewing at this moment and who has the ability to view later will surely see why you were a likely candidate for us to endorse. You submitted your survey. We had our lengthy interviews, multiple, and we were able to endorse you for Congressperson and District 6, which is Monmouth and, again, Middlesex counties. Please get out and support Sue Kiley. She mentioned her website, which I believe is just you said first and last name, Sue, S-U-E, Kiley, KILEY.com.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the entire board of NJ.PHIPAC for your, with regards to health freedom and parental rights, and congratulate you again on your endorsement. We wish you luck in this race, and we look forward to seeing your place in Washington.
Great. So do I.
Yes. Vote for Sue, as one of the comments just said.
Thank you.
To our viewers, please stay tight. We're going to let Sue go, and we have another guest joining us shortly. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Have a great day. So there you have it, folks. NJ.PHIPAC just endorsed Sue Kiley, District 6. If you reside in District 6, again, please get in touch with her, see how you can support her. There's just a short 30 days or so till our, a little over 30 days until the general election. And we're going to touch on some of those dates shortly that could help be a resource for you over the next coming weeks. But get in touch with her, see how you can help, share with your friends that are in district that she is the best medical freedom candidate we got in that district. And she is going to be a champion on our issue. She knows how to advocate. She's a family first type of candidate. And yeah, so there you have it. So up next, we are going to be bringing on Republican congressional candidate Bob Healey, but we do have some time before he's joining us. So we wanted to talk about some current events that have been going on. In the news, I'm going to attempt to bring up a video to share with you. Recently, Fox News had a retired 3-star Coast Guard Vice Admiral call out Biden administration for his misguided military vax mandate. He believes that this is an indoctrination, a way of pushing out the people of the ranks. So they, pushing out the people who are going to be non-compliant for the people who are compliant. So I'll give you a little snapshot of it, but I'm going to attempt to bring this up and give me a second. Okay, I think. Excuse me 1 second. And I have to do this. Okay. Or is it showing my screen?
I don't see it. Here, let me try.
Okay, well, I will just elaborate on his messaging myself. So again, Coast Guard, ex-Coast Guard, and hero is firing up the press regarding his position on the vax mandate in our military. Admiral William Dean Lee, who served the Coast Guard for nearly 36 years. And he is a commander, and he actually retired in 2016, but he's circulating an open letter to fellow Coast Guard to send a red flag as of Monday. This letter explains his reasoning for advocating publicly on behalf of 7 Coast Guards that he's in contact with who have been terminated from their military duty due to their refusal to receive the coronavirus vaccine, despite seeking a religious exemption. So they're not even acknowledging their religious exemptions, and they're just moving to fire them. And, he explains he's never been anti-vax. This is an issue that is just, it's just a human rights issue. And, that the military should not be firing these officers. The American people have moved on, he says. The president himself has declared the pandemic is over, yet we are continuing to hold fast to the outdated mandates, purging hundreds of dedicated sailors, even though we struggle to meet our recruiting goals. It is now time to take a pause, reevaluate and assess what this is costing in readiness, the taxpayers, and the public perception of how we treat our people. This is what he wrote in this letter. He really sees this as a, I love how he said this, an ideological purge, getting rid of the military service who thinks differently than the ranking members. One of the comments I really liked that was stated in this article. Let's see. Sorry, I hope.
If I can share mine.
Do you think you can get it up? That would be great. So I'm not reciting what he's saying, and we can actually hear from this. I think it's a strong message. Sure.
Okay, I think you can show it if you. Do you see it on the bottom?
Oh yeah. Okay. Do you have the link, or do you need me to send it to you?
No, it's on there. Just add that. Do you see it on the bottom?
Told him how proud of him I was. Thanked him for all the work he and his coasties are doing to save lives. I'm grateful for the brave women and men, federal, state, and local folks working so hard. They're all working as one team. Hear that from the governor as well as from the federal folks.
President Biden personally calling first responders, including members of the Coast Guard who risked their lives to rescue others from the devastation of Hurricane Ian.
Ironically, one of those heroes, Technician Second Class Zach Lash, says he will lose his job by the end of the year thanks to the president's own vaccine mandate. Florida Congressman Michael Waltz is a former Green Beret commander and member of the House Armed Services Committee, and he joins us now. Congressman, if you can believe it, the man that the president called to thank for his heroic actions is going to be fired at the end of the year because of the president's own policies. What do you make of this?
He's one of 2,600 coasties that are in this position, and I can tell you what, the disabled woman in a wheelchair that he strapped to himself and extracted, it saved her life. She didn't care that he hadn't received a vaccine. We have over 1,000 National Guardsmen and women in the Florida National Guard that are also in the same position, on the verge of getting kicked out of the Guard with no pay and benefits, losing their retirement. They're out there on the front lines right now. And the people that they're giving water, food, protecting from looting and crime, they don't care. The Floridians that are out there, they're saving, they don't care. But yet the Pentagon is sticking to this stubborn, asinine policy that is not following the data and the science. Look, the CDC has changed the guidelines. It is clear the vaccine doesn't stop the spread. One could argue it made sense when we thought that it did, but it no longer does. This is an extremely healthy population. So the argument that it's going to affect readiness just doesn't hold water. Look, and at the end of the day, on top of it all, guys, we have a major recruiting crisis. We are falling short, particularly in the Army, by thousands and thousands of men and women that they can't bring in to replace these people they're on the verge of kicking out. They have got to stop this mandate. It doesn't make any sense, and it's hurting people.
The point that you made is the exact same one that Mr. Lash made. Quote, if I had asked any of the people I saved yesterday if they wanted to come with me, even though I am unvaccinated, every single one of them would have said yes. He thanked me, yet the vaccine mandate is what's kicking me out. I just love my job, and I'm really good at it. I feel like this is the job that I was born to do. Do you think any of this public pressure will force any of these Washington bureaucrats to say, you know, we need to change this up now? Or at this point, is this all about saving face?
Yeah, there's just this stubborn ideology that just doesn't make any sense. Look, I get it. You know, I'm a colonel in the military, and as a Green Beret and National Guardsman, I get it. You give a platoon an order to take the hill, they have to follow that order for good military and discipline. But as a leader, and this is what I'm asking of the Pentagon leadership, you also have to reevaluate your orders. You have to change your orders when the situation changes. And if you had someone getting into a submarine or getting into a tank that you thought were going to infect others, that's one thing. But since the vaccine now doesn't stop the spread, it's a personal health decision. The CDC agrees. Let's reevaluate this order. But I can tell you what, if we flip the House, I hope to be the chairman of the Military Readiness Committee. And if the Pentagon won't change, we're going to legislate it and force them to change. We have to take care of these people who have been out on the front lines all during the pandemic, many of whom, by the way, have natural immunity because they already got the virus, and the Pentagon's not taking that into account either. It just makes no sense to hurt these folks. And we're talking big numbers, guys. 15,000 just in the Army alone, on top of the 15,000 that they fell short. That's, from a recruiting standpoint, that's 3 divisions worth of soldiers. And oh, by the way, we have the Russians threatening nuclear war, and we have a massive major Chinese buildup. Yeah. Common sense has got to reign here.
Yeah, there's also this latest YouGov CBS News poll. It shows that 68% of people believe that rights and freedoms are at stake in the midterm elections, and a lot of people view that as how people see the overturning of Roe versus Wade. But that could also mean how people view pandemic policies and lockdowns and everything that happened in 2020. 15 seconds to you, unfortunately, but do you still think that those things are on top of mind for the American people?
Well, I think first and foremost, the economy, crime, border, inflation are top of mind for this midterm. But this freedom issue, you're right, it goes both ways. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the military, the commander-in-chief himself, Joe Biden, said the pandemic's over. So let's adjust.
Congressman Michael Waltz, thank you for joining us. As always, we appreciate it.
You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks, Lori. Thanks for getting that running. I just wanted to also point out another quote that he said. He said, "These are good, dedicated, highly trained individuals that we have spent a ton of money to develop. People with up to 18 years of service forced out with no pension. Anyone willing to give that up rather than break their faith is someone I admire." And I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Lori? I couldn't
I mean,
agree.
it's crazy. We believe in what we believe in anyway. We did before COVID. But to look at this from a big perspective, with everything going on in the world, with Russia, with Ukraine, with these big countries that are in a war, and with everything happening, with us weakening our military by letting go of these service members with decades of experience. They have all this training. They have special training. We have Coast Guard. It spans across all of our military. So whatever you think, we're weakening our country by doing this for, what? For a vaccine that the CDC themselves said should not be used to segregate people any longer. And, we all had our own opinions, but to have the CDC come out and say it and then still abide by this by, just as what? As a punitive damage? Oh, you didn't listen to me? It's your body. At the end of the day, you retire from the Army. You want to retire and enjoy the rest of your life. You don't want to do something that you think is going to negatively impact your health. And we know it doesn't happen to everybody. We know that it's selective, but what if you're the one that it's selected to have the negative reaction? You should have a say in what happens to your body.
Well, you would be surprised. We know it doesn't happen to everybody, but there's some breaking news that we have from the ICANN network, the Informed Consent Action Network, who has sued and won once again the CDC for them to hand over the information that they have from a database that they collected, that was collected when individuals received the vaccination. They were given a place that they could go to update if there was any adverse reactions or any consequences from the vaccine. And now that information that was being withheld from the CDC is now in the hands of Del Bigtree and Aaron Siri and the ICANN network. So I just wanted to share that clip too. Lori, do you have that, or did you need me to get that as well? Too?
Can you put it in the outline and then I'll grab it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have the Kilmeade one if you need that.
Nope. Yeah.
It's Sorry, guys, technical difficulties.
Yeah. Where is this? Here it is. It's coming off of Instagram. I don't know if it will work.
Whose Insta is it on?
I sent you the link, and it's on the bottom of the outline. So basically what Aaron Siri, in summary, broke this recently, I believe yesterday, was that they were able to obtain these reports from the CDC, and 7.7% of 10 million incidences that were reported were of those people who sought medical care post-COVID vaccine, and a staggering 25% either missed work or had some sort of serious medical events. And now this is just a snapshot because, people are given this this resource to update if they're having any ailments or anything happen, but not always are they filling it out. So this is just a snapshot of those incidences. So it's just another reinforcement that where there's risks, there needs to be consent. Mandates are not the way. It doesn't make sense. The pandemic is reportedly over by President Biden himself. Yet there's the military that's being strong-held and really filtered out for certain political alignment, potentially for an ideological purge. And then we're seeing that here still in New Jersey. As we mentioned earlier in our show, like the healthcare workers and the corrections officers are still being required when everybody else in the state, teachers have had those requirements removed, are still being required to have the COVID mandate or face medical discrimination. Their database is not completely sealed, and that information is leaked, and these employees are getting ostracized in certain situations, and we're hearing those stories. So we're urging our community, yourselves, to please support. There is a bill I wanted to share with you, the New Jersey bill. It's been put up by New Jersey legislators on the Assembly and the Senate side. That's Bill S 2550 and A 2585. And that's going to help to end the discrimination, like the COVID vaccine mandates and testing on the vaccine free have implemented. So an easy resource for you would be to go to standforhealthfreedom.com. And that's a one-click letter that you could put in quickly put in some information, and then that letter will be sent to your legislators, your state legislators in your New Jersey legislative districts. So again, that's Stand for Health Freedom, or just simply reach out to your legislators, ask them to get behind this. The pandemic is over, and we need to end these mandates in New Jersey and federally. So getting the NJ.GOV endorsed candidates seated into office is essential because these candidates have been vetted. They are the most likely champions on our issues surrounding health freedom and parental rights. And, we encourage you to stay connected and go onto our website to make sure that you are staying connected that way and following us on social media as well. Lori, were you able to get that?
I have the video. Yep.
Okay, awesome.
Give it a second.
Data. VSafe is a CDC program where you just kind of report how you're doing after you got the vaccine. out that it was 463 days, you tell us, from the time that you requested this vSafe data. vSafe is a CDC program where you just kind of report how you're doing after you got the vaccine. 463 days to get it. Why did it take so long in your estimation, sir?
It's a very good question. Why did it take numerous legal demands, multiple appeals, 2 lawsuits, in fact, before the CDC finally handed over the vSafe data, which is already de-identified data for the most part that they provided just 2 days ago, 144 million lines of code that they could have provided in a matter of minutes at any point? It's a great question. Maybe the answer is that now that we have that data and we've looked at that data, of the 10 million users within vSafe, 7.7% of them had to seek medical care after vaccination. That is an incredibly high percentage, it appears to me.
Yeah, and if I can,
I'm
sir, I
sure
just
there
want
are
to put this graphic up to kind of follow along with you. You're right, 7.7 required medical care, talking about emergency rooms, hospitalizations. There it is right there. And on top of that, not to go you one better, but this is your information, another 2.5 million, we're talking 25%, missed work or school or had bad reactions to the vaccine. What's the takeaway for you from this? Is it significant?
It seems incredibly significant. A big reason that they pushed the COVID vaccine is they said, look, not everybody's going to get, seriously injured by COVID, but for many, it'll prevent them from having symptoms, being hospitalized, missing work. Well, now that we have the data, we could see that getting the vaccine caused 25% of people who got the shot within this data set of 10 million people to miss work, to have some serious event affecting their normal life functions.
Yeah. And you also
but I do leave it to folks like Marty.
Was for
So
now that it was for.
Thank you, Lori.
crazy to see it all coming out this way and not really reported, to be honest.
Well, I was just actually thinking that in 2019, you wouldn't have seen this type of conversation regarding questioning of vaccinations on Fox News
Or anywhere.
Anywhere,
And now they'll dismiss it and they'll say, oh, it was just Fox News, like as if they're not using real data or, they're not citing their sources.
Yeah, well, the sources that Aaron Siri was citing comes directly from the CDC derived database. So
that's the funny part.
Yeah. So I don't know what the justification will be to not believe
what's next? Well, it's just the CDC. They're, bought and paid for, except last year when we used all their stuff to shut everything down.
Right.
It's very subjective.
Oh. Well, so our next interviewer is here, and I'd love to introduce him. So let's move on, and please stay connected and stay attuned, because there is some more important information and dates that I want to provide to you when this interview is through. But this is going to be a good interview, and I encourage you to stay tuned in. Okay. So let's bring on Bob Healey, congressional candidate for New Jersey District 3. And welcome, Bob.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, we're excited to have you with us today and introduce you to our viewers and our very likely voters who have concerns still regarding health freedom and parental rights here in New Jersey and beyond. And again, we're excited to introduce you to them. But we just had a little intermission where we were sharing some videos regarding what's going on with the military. And it's really been brought to the surface because in light of Hurricane Ian, where the Coast Guard has been extremely instrumental. And there was an example of a Coast Guard member who, in fact, helped save a woman and then was recognized by President Biden and Turns out that this example is a Coast Guard member who's about to be let go because they were not given a approval on their religious exemption, likely losing pension and losing everything that they have worked for many, many years. And so I just wanted to jump right into that because, as we were mentioning, what is this? Is it really an ideological purge of the U.S. military? So I'm jumping right in, and I want to know what you think.
You start off with the spicy questions.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I read that same article a few days ago, and certainly seems like the president stepped in a little bit, which I'm sure he never wanted to do. This topic in general, that article and the greater topic that you outlined, is actually very, very pertinent for the 3rd District of New Jersey, where I'm running in, which is Burlington, parts of Mercer, and parts of Monmouth, because we have a joint base in our district. So that joint base is one of the biggest economic drivers in the district, and it does a lot of veteran services. And there's just a lot of things that go on there. So, and it's the only base in the United States that has all 5 branches of the military represented in it. So the Coast Guard is part of that base. And, my hope is it's not an ideological purge, but when you see this kind of stuff happening, it does beg the question. There are so many guardsmen over there at that base, and by being a guardsman, for maybe some of your viewers who don't understand that means that these people work part-time in the military, and then they go home and they have regular jobs and they're raising their families, or they're running a business in the district and in and around their community. And for many of those people, they may have been active duty at one point. Now they've decided to, pull back a little bit. And for them to go through 10, 15, 20, 25 years and to lose a pension simply because of government overreach on them, it boggles the mind that we are willing to treat our military this way. Men and women who put their lives on the line for us, who give up what in many cases are lucrative careers in the private sector to do a service to this country. And at the end of that, what you're telling them is because you have a disagreement, and in many cases because you're following science, because the commander-in-chief of your country, of our country, has said that the pandemic is now over, and this is still a conversation. It's upsetting, and as I said, it really does directly impact my district.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for giving that perspective. I wanted just to highlight a correction we had on our ticker that you are your district is covering the parameters of Monmouth, Mercer,
and Burlington,
and mostly Burlington, parts of Monmouth, and Mercer counties. Okay,
that's correct. It's almost all of Burlington, but for 2 towns, and then it's 5 towns in Mercer: Robbinsville, Hamilton, East Windsor, Hightstown, Lawrence, and then a swath of Monmouth that runs from about Allentown to Homedale. So towns like Marlborough, Manalapan, Freehold, Upper Freehold, Borough, Roosevelt, those sorts of towns.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. If any of our viewers are have family or friends or live in those districts, keep your ears open. Please pass this, share this interview with them, and encourage them to help get our most recently endorsed congressional candidate, Bob Healey, seated and sent off to Washington, please. So again, I just want to start on behalf of the board of NJPHIPAC. I want to congratulate you on this endorsement.
Well, I don't take it lightly, nor do I take it for granted. You guys have a very rigorous endorsement project and process, and you should. You should, because these issues are important. And I was very appreciative of how sort of rigorous it was. It's good to see that, and I'm very happy and very proud to be here.
Yeah. So for our viewers, I highlighted our endorsement process earlier, but our endorsement process is designed to have a survey, an interview with the candidate, And we look at voting history or their stances on a plethora of issues surrounding health freedom, informed consent, and parental rights. And we had the opportunity to speak with Bob on several occasions to get to know him, and we're able to conclude with his endorsement. So, we're excited about it and optimistic about his run, and want to really use this time here today to allow you to see what we have seen, and to be transparent to you as to why he is the most likely medical freedom candidate in his district. And so, without further ado, we're going to move on to some current event questions for you. And let's see. Yes, we talked about the, all right, actually it's on to Lori. Sorry. So let's get personal.
So
Awesome.
real quick, just on our endorsement process, sometimes people will say, well, why'd you endorse this person? Or they did this. And you guys don't know what we do. 7 of us are constantly talking about everything. We pretty much stalk all these candidates and we say, what's this? What's this? And we do go back to them. So when you see that we endorse somebody, we didn't take it lightly. We didn't pull their name out of a hat. We didn't, it's a very serious process. And Bob pretty much just told you that. So, we're always looking to see who's best. And we totally believe Bob is the best. We need to, everybody get out there and vote. If you have to go vote early, I actually have to this year. So it'll be my first time not voting on election day. I'll be voting early, and I'll be checking that my vote gets counted afterward online. If you haven't signed up for that, please do. Now moving on to getting personal with Bob. We hit him hard to begin with, so now we're going to get personal. So can you tell us about yourself personally, professionally, and outside of politics?
Gladly. I am a father of a 15-month-old girl. She'll be 16 months in a couple of days. She's just about able to open doors, which is terrifying as a first-time parent. And I've been married to my wife now for 7, almost 8 years. We live in Morristown, New Jersey. I grew up in Lumberton and Burlington County. My wife's from Minnesota originally, but grew up here in New Jersey for the better part of her teenage years. And this is where we want to raise our daughter. This is where I grew up. It's where she grew up. This part of New Jersey has been really good to us, and we want to stay here. And we want this place to be, this community to be the best community that it can be. I build boats for a living. I run the Viking Yacht Company along with my cousin. We employ over about 1,600 people down in the southern tip of Burlington County on the Bass River. And, our employees are like family to us. I've grown up with a lot of them. And so over the years, we've done everything we can to make sure that they have everything they need to build a better life for their family as well. And ultimately, that's kind of what I see my run about. It's a service. It's a service to the community that I've grown up in and that I'm raising my family in. Outside of that, I toured in a punk rock band for a couple of years, which is probably a lot different from a lot of other candidates this cycle, or maybe any cycle. I did that for a living for a few years, and I teach yoga. I've been teaching yoga now for 6 years. I've been practicing for well over 10. I've spent a lot of time in India and Nepal. And I enjoy traveling, which I haven't gotten to do much. Running for Congress is kind of a full-time job along with another full-time job.
Thank you. It's such an interesting background, and I don't think people would expect it, and I think it's great because a lot of our community does do a lot of yoga as well. So how is your life?
Keeps me sane.
You're very zen, I do have to say. Every time we meet with you, you're like, I got this. How is your
You know
life?
what? Sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
Please go
Oh,
ahead.
no. How has your life up until now shaped you for this? Please share any relevant experiences.
Well, one of the biggest experiences that I have when we're talking about getting into the political realm is that back in 1990, the federal government instituted a tax on things like jewelry and cars and boats. And so our company went from 1,600 people down to 64 in the span of about 18 months. and it was terrible. It destroyed a really massive industry here in New Jersey, boat building industry, as well as throughout the country. Hundreds of businesses closed, hundreds of thousands of jobs lost. And it was the first time that I really experienced the fact that you could do everything right in your business. You could work hard. You could have employees that you loved and took care of. And the federal government could still come in and be very damaging to you. And you know, I think we're seeing that kind of overreach again lately, particularly when we look at some of these mandates, as well as some of the things the federal government's doing in the financial sector. We see that kind of overreach. And so it was a big life lesson for me. I was about 9-10 years old. I didn't know everything that was going on, but I knew my parents had a second mortgage on the house, and that was very difficult for them. I knew that my father would come home every Thursday. We work 4 10-hour days at the yacht company. And I knew that he would come home every Thursday looking just totally beat up, because that's when we would put furlough lists up. And we were furloughing people that he had spent his whole life with. Fast forward to 2008, 2009, in another downturn, we went through furloughs again, and this time I worked in human resources. And I remember having to walk people that I knew I'd grown up with. You know, I called some of these people aunt and uncle through their COBRA benefits. Again, due to some, in that case, in 2009, due to some bad federal policy that was put through the government. So I've seen what government overreach looks like. And I know how damaging it can be, both to personal liberties and private business. And you know, one of the philosophies I've always sort of worked with when it comes to federal policy is that the government ought to have an idea of do no harm, kind of like a doctor in some ways. There are some things that they do well. I'm not somebody who thinks that you shouldn't have government involved in anything anywhere, but I do believe it should be limited. So, you know, that was kind of the first outside issue that I ever had and happened as a kid.
Thank you. So, you know, when you hear economy, sometimes you think big, but honestly, economy is in your house. If it all comes down, taxes, any tax money or government money, that's our money. When they say this much was sent here, that's your money going there. And, you know, hearing, unfortunately, your experience, many people can relate to that, especially people that were laid off for COVID vaccine mandate refusal, or, you know, anything, recession, things like that. They hit us all. It's terrible. So why
New
now?
Jersey.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Go. No, I cut
I
you
was
off
just-
last time, and this time
I
your
was just
turn.
going to say, you know, for a lot of us, I'm sure a lot of the people, most of the people watching this at home, New Jersey is the highest tax state in the union, or one of, and it doesn't make it easy to do business. And when you put a federal government on top of that, that also feels that they need to do things like increase taxes. Here in New Jersey, makes it very, very difficult to just lead the life you want to live, build a better life for your family, and build a business.
It's very relatable, you know, for people that our viewers right now. So why now? Why was it so important for you to run now?
Two reasons. One is, I think, like many people in the country, my hope has been that we would see a lot of this divisiveness we would come back together as Americans. This country is extremely divided. The rhetoric the temperature gets very high on both sides. And there's a lot of reasons we can talk about for that, but regardless, that's where we're at right now. And I can tell you that knocking on doors and meeting people in the district over the last year, many people just want to see us come back together as Americans, to start to have some constructive conversations rather than destructive conversations. And to be very honest with you, when Joe Biden took office, you know, look, I didn't know what to expect, other than, you know, I'd known the guy had been in the Senate for basically his entire life and had never really held a private sector job. But my hope, I think, with many Americans was, you know, maybe the temperature gets turned down a little bit. And that didn't happen. Joe Biden went very far to the left, very, very quickly. And when I saw that, I looked at my own congressman, you know, because I said, okay, well, you know, on a national stage, this person is going way off to one side, and that's a problem for me. But let me look at the person who represents me. And I looked at Congressman Andy Kim. And while Congressman Andy Kim has acted like a moderate when he comes home to the district, I've met him. He lives in Morristown. He lives not far from me. We've spent time in each other's company. When I looked at what he voted on, when I looked at his policies, the fact that he's a member of the far left Progressive Caucus, the fact that he votes 94% of the time with them, that is not the way people I grew up with in the district vote. That's not the way that people here think. And it became very apparent to me that the congressman acted one way when he came home and did another thing when he went to DC, that he was not the person he was purporting to be when he was back here in the district. And that's not good representation. The job of a representative in Congress is to represent the people in your district, to vote in their interest. It's not about necessarily what you want to do. It's about what's best for the people in your district. That means that you can't put party or your caucus or politics over the people in your district. And when I looked at the congressman's voting record, that's what he's done and has continued to do. The second reason, a little more closer to home, I have a daughter. You know, when I was, one of the things I've always said about my wife and I is we're a great team. She's very, very supportive of me. And I've always thought, you know, no matter what happens in our life, my wife and I together, we're going to be able to handle anything. But now I've got a daughter, and sometimes when I look at her asleep at night, I think I'm not going to be here forever. So what does this place look like when I'm gone, when I'm not there to support her? And I'm worried. I'm very concerned for the country that my daughter's going to grow up in.
A lot of us share that with you. That hits home. 30 years from now, when you look back, how would you want your time as a congressman to be remembered?
You know, maybe this might be the toughest question ever, but that you've asked. I had to think about this a lot when you sent it to me. I would say that I would want to be remembered as the congressman that wears jeans and a t-shirt, goes to the local coffee shop that you can get on his cell phone, or at least that his staff was able to connect you to when you needed him most. Because I've had the honor of knowing every congressman in this district, from Jim Saxton, who was one of the fathers of the Joint Base that we talked about earlier, to John Runyon, who was a great Eagles player as well as a great representative, to John Adler for his brief stint here, and to Tom MacArthur. And I couldn't necessarily tell you every single thing that they voted on in Congress every single day. But what I do remember about all of them is that they were able to pick up a phone and help people in their district. Constituent services. That's the thing I want to be remembered for, because that's the thing that excites me to do this job. To come home on the train every night that I can from DC, be back in my district, spend time with the people here, and be of service to them.
Thank you. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I wanted to move on. Thank you for sharing that, and we can see your sincerity when you talk about your family and what matters to you, and why you've decided to run. And again, you know, to our viewers, and it just more solidifies having Bob on today, and showing him to you is just a way for us to solidify why we were able to endorse him to be the best candidate to support medical freedom. He's a new father. He's had a worldly experience, as he just explained, and it comes from, you know, born and raised New Jersey, and just wants to see things set up and well for the generations to come. Am I correct?
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. So, okay. So I wanted to move on to some questions regarding your campaign. What's going on? Tell us about what's happening currently in your District 3. Have you seen any polls or reporting? What can you share at this juncture with us?
Well, we just finished our 53 town tour. So there's 53 tours in the district. And throughout the month of September, I got to visit every single one of them. And some of them I'd been to before, some of them I hadn't. And through that, you really get to get a feeling of what really is on people's minds within the district. And there's three big questions that every single person that I met has. Three major questions. What are you going to do about my gas and grocery bill? I don't feel safe in my own neighborhood. What are you going to do about that? And do you know what they're teaching my children in school? These are the three big questions that I get as I've gone up and down the district over the month of September. And look, these are things that the mainstream media and by and large my opponent, they're not talking about. And so a lot of people feel as though they don't have a voice right now. And they want that voice. You know, when it comes to polling, what I can tell you is, you know, we are pretty close, myself and the incumbent. He's not very popular in the district. His popularity is under 50%. It was that way in July, and it hasn't moved since September. So, you know, he's gone negative on me early on, which means that he's scared and concerned, and he should be. He should be, because he's not been present. He's not shown up in this district. I was at a Sikh temple in Burlington a month and a half ago, and when I asked them if the congressman had ever visited them, the gentleman there I was talking to said yes, he did about 4.5 years ago. He's not been back since, and that's a story that I hear about a lot of people in the district. So we're in a good spot. We're in a very good spot, being 33, 34 days out right now. And we're going to continue to do a lot of meet and greets. We're going to continue to do the hard work of making sure that we touch as many people in the district as possible, myself and my team, to make sure that they understand that I am going to be that voice for them when I go to Congress. I am going to come home. I have a young daughter. My wife is not letting us move to DC, nor would I want to. I'm going to be there for them.
Perfect. Thank you. I want to point out, as I was stressing before, Bob's district covers Burlington County, and I think it's important to highlight that in 2021, the New Jersey legislative seat in that district, where former Senator President Steve Sweeney sat, was reneged on him, and Senator Ed Durr took that seat. So there was a little bit of a wave there. And do you think that that's something that is going to help you this election?
Well, that was certainly a surprise to a lot of people, myself included, honestly. And that's a little out of this district. It's just south as our neighbor. But Senator Durr is a neighbor of ours. But what I can tell you is, in this district, the new CD3, Burlington, Mercer, and Monmouth, 5 seats flipped last cycle from Democrat to Republican. So there is a wave that we saw during the gubernatorial election. And it's also important to note that this district, under the gubernatorial numbers, was a 49-49 split down to a decimal point. So it's a very, very swingy purple district. And we're going to bring this thing home. Come November 8th, we're going to win.
Yeah. So to our viewers, you're not going to be wasting time. You get down and help Bob Healey make some calls, and do some door knocking, and again, share this video with your neighbors and friends in those areas, because it is instrumental to get more candidates, more representation in Washington, D.C. than we currently have here right now. And Bob has explained to you why he would be the likely candidate, why he would be the best candidate to do that. Can you, I know you shared a little bit, but I wanted to ask a little bit more about, the contrasting views between yourself and your opponent's values.
Well, the first thing that my opponent did when he went to Congress was join the Progressive Caucus. And for those of those people that may not be familiar, the Progressive Caucus is the farthest left caucus in the Democratic Party in all of Congress. They're authors of such ideas like defunding the police, a 10% cut to our defense spending across the board, which, regardless of what one thinks about that, if you have a joint base in your district, that's a tough one. And he's continued to remain a member of that. I'm not an extremist. I grew up in this district. I consider myself a pretty moderate person. And I would look to join something more like the Problem Solvers Caucus. I would look to befriend people in Congress and work with people in Congress who are willing to actually get legislation done, who are willing to actually come together and have the hard discussions oftentimes that we need to have to move this country forward. And I think that's our contrasting view here. Regardless of how the congressman paints himself, those are his votes. That's the caucus he belongs to. And that's the way that he's acted and comported himself while he's in Congress. I'm going to be the better fit for this district, because this district is made up of sensible people who just want to be able to build a better life here. And would rather not have the government's fingers in their life day in and day out if it can be avoided. So I think there's a very wide difference between the congressman and I.
Perfect. Thanks for contrasting that. And what would be, you mentioned doing some roundtables or getting the community together, but what are some of the things you're going to be focusing on in the next 30 days?
Well, we're going to have next week. We'll have a Columbus Day celebration up in Hamilton, which is the largest town in the district. We're doing a lot of house parties, grassroots type of meet and greets. And I'll be in Robbinsville later tonight. So I'm crisscrossing up and down the district. One of the things that I'm really looking forward to, honestly, is in a couple of weeks we'll be kind of doing another mini town tour where we hit some of the larger spots in the district, and those are always great, particularly when you do it at like a local business that people know. You really get to meet not just maybe the elected officials of the town you're in, who are important, no doubt, but you get to meet the everyday people that live in that town and can tell you what their real issues are, what they care about, what they're seeing. I can remember a really great memory I have is going to a local ice cream stop down in Burlington County, and White Dot down on 206. And they were telling me about all the issues they had with rising inflation and rising wages. And at the end of it, you want to talk about government overreach, he said, "Oh, and by the way, I'm getting audited by the IRS. This is a little tiny ice cream stand." And, all those new IRS agents they're hiring, I guess, are getting to work pretty quickly. So those are the types of stops I like. Sometimes they're not rosy like that one, but you get to really understand how the decisions that are made in federal government affect people in the district, affect hardworking people.
Yeah, I'm sure there's multiple examples of how people have been affected recently. So I'm sure you're hearing all about it. Lori, we're going to pass it along to you for some quick fire questions.
You're on mute, Lori.
Oops.
I've been there.
I had a quick question before we go to your quick fire fun ones. One of our other endorsed Congressman, Chris Smith, he is championing a bill to reinstate the military vaccine mandate. The people that were let go or will be let go. Is that something you would get behind when you join Congress?
Yeah, it's certainly, Congressman Smith mentioned that bill to me, and it's certainly something I would definitely take a look at again. Like I said, it's for people that put their life on the line, for people that have spent years foregoing private sector for service in our military. I think they need to be treated and put on a pedestal and treated well. So yes, it's something that I would definitely look into supporting with Congressman Smith.
Thank you. I mean, we'd love to have all of our New Jersey people, all of our representatives sign on. That'd be amazing. So what sports or clubs did you belong to as an undergrad?
I played football in high school for 3 years. I got into weightlifting actually, and I got into healthy eating in during college. Touring in a band didn't really help healthy eating. It's kind of tough to do. I lived on, dollar menu for a while. But when I got out of that, I got into all natural bodybuilding for a while. And that was really great for me because I learned a lot. I learned a lot about my body that I didn't know. And then I couldn't touch my toes because my hamstrings were really tight. So I went and took a hot yoga class one day, figuring, yeah, this will make me stretch. And then I saw all these people that were doing all these amazing things. And I thought, well, I'm a strong guy. I should be able to do that. And it's totally different muscle activation. So the competitive nature in me kicked in. And I really got into yoga. And then it went from being competitive, which yoga is not really supposed to be, to an hour to myself that I often didn't get. And then from there, I suddenly started to realize that my mind got really quiet. I felt a lot better. I was a better husband. My life got better. And so, I would say in a very roundabout way, football eventually led me into yoga, which I'm very grateful for.
That's awesome. Personally, I just think it's going to be great that our country is going to have a congressman who is into yoga and is a punk rocker. Can everyone say that? I'm going to Google to make sure there's no other punk rock or yoga fans in Congress. What was the first restaurant you took your wife to?
I took my wife to Seasons 52 in Cherry Hill. We went for a drink because my wife and I have known each other since we were 5 years old. She was 5 years old. I'm 5 years older than her. And when you're a kid and there's a 5-year age difference, you might as well be on different planets. But her grandmother actually taught me how to ride a horse, and when I was like 3. So we went to Seasons 52 because we had just reconnected over Facebook, and if she were here now, she would hit me if I told you that. But we'd reconnected over Facebook. I hadn't seen her in many, many years because she had moved to Minnesota and then moved back to New Jersey. And so I thought, okay, well, we'll go out and have a drink. And a drink led to dinner because we had such a great time. And then we just never, and I mean this, we just never stopped hanging out, and here we are.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I still haven't been. They opened one in my town, but I haven't been yet. So
It's delicious.
what's your favorite New Jersey beach?
I'm pretty partial to Long Beach Island. The beach itself is a little more quiet than some other beaches. And I'm not like a sand person. I love the water. The sand though, I don't know. So there's a lot of other stuff to do in LBI that you can do and relax with. And now that I've got a daughter, I took her to mini golf this summer, which, at 15 months, she's not really playing, but she loved everything that was there. She thought it was the coolest thing ever. I have no idea what my score was, and it didn't matter.
Aw, I love that. What's one thing on your bucket list?
I've had the real privilege to spend time traveling to different parts of the world. I lived in Hong Kong for about 6 months at one time, and I spent about 2 months at an ashram in India, which changed my life in a lot of ways. And there are these holy places that they have in India that they say every person should visit before they die. There's 4 of them, and I visited one. And there's 3 others, and they're hard to get to. Some of them are high up on mountains. Some of them take days to get to. Before I'm done, I'm going to get to all 4.
That's awesome. And who's your favorite ex-president?
It's another hard one. I have found that my favorites with presidents tends to change depending on what's going on in our country, and sometimes what's going on in our life. There's people that presidents that I take lessons from and get really into. Ronald Reagan's probably a mainstay. I just found the way that he had first off, he had a sense of humor, and I can appreciate that, because sometimes I can tell you as a yoga teacher, the only way you can get through to people is with humor sometimes. If everybody can laugh in a room, you're all doing something together, and that really brings you down to a human level. And I always thought that he had a good sense of humor, but he was a guy who wasn't the smartest person in the room, didn't have to be the smartest person in the room, but found really smart people to put around him. right now, I've actually gotten really into John Adams, who, was a president who took the presidency at a time when the country was just starting to maybe have its first political divide. Political parties were coming into vogue then. His best friend was on the other side of the aisle from him, Thomas Jefferson. And when you read the letters, when you see what went on in the press between the two of them, sometimes it pales in comparison to some things you'll read on Instagram or Twitter. It really does. And it reminds me that, for as bad as we can feel things are these days, as far as polarization in this country, we've been here before. And it actually gives me a lot of faith that we can get through this, and we can start to have discussions as Americans and as human beings. And so I would say those are the two that have occupied a lot of my time these days.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the transparency, and I feel like I should say namaste.
Namaste.
I'm sure, as Lori said, our viewers can connect to you. Many of our viewers are parents. Majority of them are parents, and just in general citizens concerned about the divide. I've heard you say numerous times how important that is to mend back together that divide. And I think that, from your worldly experience, knowing people, knowing how to stay in the present moment is a gift, and a value that you will add to Congress, and being able to do that, because as we know, it's really essential for our issue that is not a partisan issue. It's an issue of it's a human rights issue, right? And we've seen members across both aisles wanting to speak up and represent this issue. So I think that the right candidates for medical freedom is the type of person who can reach across the aisle and have those down-to-earth, humanly conversations about how important it is to be able to preserve our bodily autonomy. And from what I've seen now in our third lengthy conversation, that is definitely something that you will be your strong suit in Washington. It's exciting to know that there's so much churning in your district regarding excitement for you. We know that the New Jersey political party was behind you significantly, and that's exciting. We know that your district is a likely district to flip. So again, it's important for me to emphasize, to encourage our viewers to go and support you. This election, let's put it for what it is. It's gigantic, and is going to dictate not just the next, the next 4 years, but, indefinitely where we're heading as a nation. So regarding personal freedoms and more, this is an important election to make sure that you get out to vote. So before wrapping up, it's always a question that we want to ask our endorsed candidates to highlight for us. If you could just spend a second doing so and explaining what medical freedom means to you and why it is so important to have informed consent.
Well, medical freedom means having the option, the informed option, to make the choices that are best for you, your children, and your family. And that sometimes means that you've got to educate yourself on what's going on, as so many people have done over the last few years. And you have to be discerning about where you get your information from and the footnotes that are included in it. So medical freedom to me means just that. It's not easy. It requires work sometimes, but it's very, very important. And I couldn't be prouder to be here with all of you today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. We're lucky that we get candidates like you to run.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say.
Yeah. I think it's also important to highlight that the work that we're doing at NJ.GOV to have this open door conversation, to be able to present it to the people of New Jersey and say that, listen, we've put in the work, we've held them accountable, and this is the candidate that you need to get behind. It's instrumental. Like I said before, in 2019, you didn't have these conversations. And maybe for, for everybody, it's the light bulbs are coming off at different moments. But more and more people, especially through COVID, before COVID, what had happened in Trenton with the religious exemption bill and those freedoms being threatened, and the nature of what's still happening with mandates, people are just fed up and are aware of this issue and see it as a common sense issue. It's time to move on from the pandemic and to get the right people into office. So thank you for your time. Do you have any final words that you'd like to share to our audience?
Well, if anybody wants to find us, if anybody wants to volunteer, you can contact us at our website, bobhealeyforcongress.com, and that goes right to myself and my campaign manager and our staff in each of the districts. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we would love to see anybody who's interested at any of the 3 headquarters locations we have: Medford in Burlington, Hamilton in Mercer, and Colts Neck up in Monmouth. So stop by, make a couple of phone calls, maybe knock some doors or put some signs together. We have a lot of fun. It's a lot of good people, and and we can use all the help that we can get.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. And on behalf of myself and the board of directors at NJ.PHIPAC, I want to once again thank you for your commitment to our endorsement process and for taking this time to have face-to-face moments with our community of likely voters. We wish you the best of luck in this race, and we hope you take seat and take your place in Washington. Thank you for your time today, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. So I just wanted to take a moment, as I had said, there's a couple other announcements I mentioned earlier that is just important to stress here in New Jersey. The mandates on healthcare workers and on corrections officers are still in place based on the Executive Order 292. It's a discriminatory COVID testing of solely COVID-19 free, again, healthcare workers and corrections officers that continues to be implemented on a weekly basis due to the executive orders of Governor Phil Murphy. And we must ask our legislators to support bills, Senate Bill S 1973 and A 2583 to help end this discrimination against these employees here in New Jersey. And to, it's arbitrary testing. It presents discrimination. The employee requirements, that the employee confidentiality is being threatened, and, people are being ostracized for this. Never mind the fact that, again, for the 5th time, President Biden himself has said the pandemic is over. We know that the vaccine is not effective. We know that there are risks associated, thanks to the ICANN network and Aaron Series' announcement that 25% of the 10 million people that use the CDC database to upload if there were any ailments post the COVID injection responded that there was. So 25% of those people had some type of adverse reaction. And these mandates need to end. So go to standforhealthfreedom.com, and you can use that program as a one-click advocacy tool to reach your legislators and let them know how you feel. That is a really effective way to do that. You're also able just to reach out to them. They are aware of these issues, and many of them want to get behind it but need to know that their constituents care. Lori?
So it's not only advantageous, but it's imperative to have strong representation for New Jersey and our country. Our future and our children's future does depend on it. So some important dates for this year. Election Day is November 8th. Polls open at 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you're able to vote earlier, you may want to in case something happens that day, weather or whatever, and you're not able to make it to the polls. Also, if you do vote early, you're able to track it online to make sure your vote's counted. So I'll be doing that this year. If you want to join me, go for it. There's a list in every county of where you can vote, and that'll be on our voting guide, which is coming out soon. October 18th is the last day to register to vote for the general election. So if you're not registered to vote yet, you have until October 18th. I would get on it soon. A lot of people are reporting that sometimes their driver's license number or social security number is coming up wrong, even though obviously it's correct. So I would try it sooner rather than later and make sure you're able to get in and register. After October 26th, sample ballots will be arriving. So that'll show who is running to represent you. October 29th to November 6th, the early voting period. So there are select locations, a few in each county that you're able to go to and vote on a machine early. It's like an iPad, and that's what I'll be doing this year. So like I said, it's very imperative to vote this year. So if there's any chance you won't be able to make it election day, go on those machines, get it in. November 1st is the last day to apply for a mail-in ballot. It's, if you have to do that, you should do that. If you want to vote early, that's recommended. In-person voting, November 8th, and drop-off mail-in ballots must be returned to the Board of Elections or deposited in an official ballot drop box by 8 p.m. You can find those on your county voting sites, and we will include it in our email with our voting guide. Please stand by for our 2022 NJPHIPAC.org Voters Guide, where we will proudly present our endorsed candidates as deserving of recognition and support as the primary season comes to its conclusion. We hope that this work helps you to identify the best way to use your voting power to protect and advance health freedom here in New Jersey.
Thank you, Lori. We mentioned earlier that the success of the NJ5PAC relies on our contributions from individuals just like yourself. We are a grassroots nonprofit organization, and we are by the people and for the people, unlike many other PACs like a pharmaceutical giant who have millions at their disposal. This PAC, NJ5PAC's efforts is a show of people, not just dollars, but the dollars matter, whether it's a small contribution. If there's something you can do on a reoccurring basis, it's greatly appreciated because there's a lot of that goes into this process, but also support that we need to be able to offer to the legislators here in New Jersey, especially in this coming year. I don't want to skip ahead too much, but 2023, our legislators are up again for election. So much to come. Stay tuned in with us. I hope you appreciate the work that we're doing. And if so, please show your appreciation with a contribution. You can go to www.njphipac.org. And then again, sign up there to stay connected, follow us on our social media, keep abreast of current events. And signing up is important because in the eyes of the legislators, contributions to the PAC equals voters. We know that this is a base of likely voters. So, stay tuned with us. Let us show our legislators and our representatives that we are a voting bloc that matters. Thank you for staying tuned in with us. For those who have, please, it's a long show, but rewind, listen to the perspectives of Sue Kiley and Bob Healey. We are excited about their endorsement. We know that they're the best candidates. And again, like as Lori said, our full guide will be out shortly. Thank you and have a great day.